Law for Life, the podcast, with Franklin Solicitors.
Hello, welcome to Law for Life, the Franklin's podcast, and it's great to be joined in the studio today by Tia from the corporate services team at Franklin's. Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yes, nice to see you here in Milton Keynes in the sunshine, ready to talk all about AI, which I think it's the big buzzword. Last couple of years, the world has changed completely. AI it was science fiction a few years ago, and now we kind of take it for granted. I think we're a little bit more suspicious about everything that we see because we know that AI exists and it can do your job for you. And I think as a business owner, the temptation is there to use a little bit of digital assistance to help you with a few bits and bobs that you do in your day-to-day life. What we're going to talk about today is legal stuff and when you shouldn't get a little bit of extra help from ChatGPT and all of the other AI tools that are there. And I guess this is something that's happening more and more, that companies are getting AI to help them out on the legal side.
It's become a massive new tool. It's grown exponentially in the last 2-3 years. I could say even now you've noticed that there are new rules coming about how to use it in courts, in universities and schools. I didn't think it was even a consideration when we were training as lawyers, but now it's everywhere and it's something you have to keep an eye on and keep up with, or you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, and I think that the worry is that people that don't work in the legal profession see legal stuff as almost like computer programming. It's a case of tell it what you want, get the output that you need, and there's not much thought that goes into it. It's kind of going through the processes and creating a document that's watertight, that you'd get the same output if you gave the same instructions to any solicitor, because there's a certain set of things that you're supposed to do. Is that how it actually is, or is there a lot more kind of human creativity involved?
I'd say it's a bit of both. Sure, we can create things for you, such as shareholders agreements and share purchase agreements and basic contracts and other documents, and they do follow certain principles and certain clauses, but they're there for a certain reason. We put these clauses and words in to serve a purpose, to protect you and to create security. And in the same way that you could change a prompt and engineer it to get the output you want, solicitors and barristers tailor the way we draft things to meet the objectives of each client. No agreement's the same.
So there's, it's not a case of one size fits all. It's very much specific to the instructions that you've been given and knowing what's in the best interest of your client.
Effectively, yeah, you can't say one clause will suit everybody because it may not be entirely applicable to another person. You may have a company with lots and lots of directors and hundreds of shareholders, or one where the 3 directors are also the 3 shareholders. You won't have the same shareholders agreement for both.
And I think the risk is that AI doesn't really understand what it's doing. It's basically giving you an average of the sum of human knowledge. So people have fed into it loads of everything in the world, everything they could find on the internet. So billions of legal contracts and stuff. And you don't necessarily know if what it's been trained on is necessarily best practice or not. But what you're going to get is a very much an average of what it thinks a legal contract might look like. Am I right?
More or less, yeah. AI learns from human input. That's its only source. It can be what we as humans have created. It doesn't know how to skim through everything and pick out what's actually relevant, because it doesn't have the same touch that human beings do, because we understand people as people. Machines are only there to sift through data. We just have a slightly more personal approach.
Yeah, and I guess templates are another thing that maybe this has been around for a lot longer than ChatGPT, but I know, I might have been a little bit lazy in the past with things like letting agreements, where you just download a basic template and fill in the details and just think, oh, that will do. Is that becoming more of an issue, or is ChatGPT better than a template? Because at least then there's a little bit more thought that's gone into it, maybe.
I wouldn't say one's better than the other. If you think you can be absolutely safe with a pre-downloaded template, you'll probably find you're still adding details yourself that are relevant to you without even realizing. But ChatGPT may not know all your circumstances. It may start figuring out how to ask you questions that help tailor it, but it won't know everything. But that's not to say we can't use AI models as a tool. It's just not a substitute for legal advice and legal professionals.
Yeah, and I think maybe sometimes businesses understand the risk, and it's more of a risk-based decision that they're thinking, okay, I can get AI to help me with this contract, and maybe it's not going to be something that would hold up in court, but am I ever going to get to that point where it's a problem? That maybe a lot of paperwork that you use in business is more to create the impression that there's paperwork than to actually ever use it.
It's a balance of risk and reward. It's wondering if what you create by yourself will be enough to protect you, but you won't be sure until you actually run into a problem, and you need to now fall back on this paperwork to see if your rights and obligations have been secured. You're never going to know, and I don't think it's worth waiting for something to go wrong before being caught out by it.
Yeah, I think that is very good advice, and I think a lot of businesses, if money wasn't an object, they would always get things done professionally, but I think especially now, budgets are tight and businesses are looking at all of their expenses and trying to work out what you can save some money on, and it's a big risk though, isn't it? Because the terrible things can happen if you're not protected legally.
Exactly. We can see situations where you've not had proper articles drafted, or you've had an incomplete shareholders agreement, even incorrect director service agreements, and you find that someone decided not to pay you properly, or you're not being secured. You fall back to this paperwork, and actually it was never binding because a clause has been missed, or the wording has been just so slightly wrong that it doesn't cover you. And it's a problem we run into constantly. And it's heartbreaking for a lawyer to see, because you want to be able to protect people, and you go, I'm really sorry, it's just not there.
Do you see examples sometimes that people will come into you and say, right, I need some help enforcing this contract, and you look at it and you just think, oh, this is rubbish, this is nonsense, it's gobbledygook, it's just been created by some kind of machine that doesn't really understand what it's saying, and it's put things in here that are just complete nonsense?
Regrettably, yes. We've had people come in where they've had a breach of an agreement. It's offered, this contract may have offered a solution to resolve it, but it's not actually a valid mechanism. We had someone come in once with a ChatGPT contract which had a resolution mechanism but wasn't complete, and it didn't actually offer an answer for how to resolve it. It just said, you can do this, but it does specify what this is. When contracts are supposed to break it down step by step to make sure all bases are covered. And we have to say you can't resolve it just by talking to each other. We can offer mediation, we can offer that you can issue proceedings, but you can't just rely on the rules set out in this contract, because there aren't any.
And I think that the risk is that as a layman, you're not going to know, you'll get the output from ChatGPT and you don't have the legal, knowledge to check that there isn't anything ridiculous in it like that. And a lot of the time when you're using ChatGPT to write a press release or a blog post and it writes something stupid, you spot that and you can call it out and it will go, oh yes, you're completely right, I made that up. Sorry, I won't do that again. But it always does. But you don't know with a legal contract, and it does seem to make mistakes quite a lot of the time. I'd say at least 10% of stuff that it outputs is, they call it hallucinations. It's just AI being over creative. And you don't know when that's in a legal contract because you're not a lawyer. You don't recognize that.
It's gone even further than just contracts. It's actually got to a point where barristers are trying to use AI models to help them prep for court cases. There was a case down in London where a clerk or a barrister had decided to use an AI model to collect some case law to prove a point in a judicial review matter. I think it was against one of the borough councils. And the model had spat out 5 different cases, all with very realistic looking names and realistic looking citations. We're not going to know every citation by heart. You see it and you think, okay, that looks pretty normal. That must be fine. And the case names all looked completely legitimate. He got taken to a court. The judge looked at it and went, I don't think I've seen this before. And out of all the cases that spat out, 5 were fake.
And what happened? Did
it got thrown out.
Disbarred or anything?
The case got thrown out. There was a humongous wasted costs order put down instead. It was spending all that time going to court for something that doesn't actually exist.
It's frightening. And there's been examples in the news as well of some quite high profile legal decisions that have just been based on, made up stuff that's come out of AI. And, us humans, we're very trusting. We think, it must know because it knows better than us. It's the sum of all human knowledge, but you can't rely on it 100%. So what can you use AI for on the legal side that doesn't have this level of risk?
It's great as a tool for summarising objectives. And if you've got a problem or you want to have something done, it's a fabulous tool to articulate what it is you want doing. If sometimes people don't always know how to say it, or they might give a prompt to an AI model and say, I have a vague idea of what's going on. Can you give this a spin to make it look a bit more legitimate? And when we get a nice clear set of instructions that have articulated properly what a client wants, it gives us a much better starting point to help them, or to sift through and say, okay, we think we know what you need now, we can start from this. It's a tool that helps you articulate, it helps you summarise, even expand.
Yeah.
Just don't draft, please.
But if a client comes to you and says, look, I've drafted an agreement with ChatGPT, can you look it over and tweak it and make sure it's compliant? Would that be cheaper than getting you to do it from scratch? Does that actually create more work for you?
Chances are most lawyers will actually start it from the beginning.
They'll say thank you and I'll just throw it in the bin.
We will add all the wording that is needed to secure the contract. AI will miss the little words and little choices of sentences. We won't always review because we know it's missing everything.
Yeah, you wouldn't even start with it. You'd just be like, mate,
we've tried.
Can we just start again?
There've been attempts at trying it, and we found that most of the time we end up restarting it. So we now say from the outset, it's not going to be viable as an option to send us one.
Okay, and what if somebody sends you a contract and you want to check it through? Is AI good at kind of going through it and telling you what's happening?
At present, no. We also run the risk of data protection leaks. Confidentiality is the lawyer's number one rule book to play by. We have to make sure all clients' information is kept confidential. So we're not big fans of putting full contracts into an AI model to pick apart, because you don't know what the risks are, especially with open source AI models like ChatGPT or Gemini. It's not safe. Unless you use an in-house internal model, for example, like CoCounsel, you can't be too sure.
So there are AI models that are made specifically for solicitors to use?
Yes, there are. There are a handful. CoCounsel is probably the biggest one. But even now, that's still got teething problems.
Okay.
We think just the human touch is safer.
Yeah. So how did solicitors use CoCounsel? Is that just mainly something that you would, check what it's done and give it a bit of oversight?
Well, we don't personally use it at Franklin's, but it helps you review, it helps you draft, prepare responses to emails, or help with filing and suggesting ways of archiving things. It's quite a good tool. It's very broad, but it's still new.
But do you think there's a risk if people find out that this tool exists that they're going to suddenly start thinking, well, if the solicitors are using AI, why don't I use it?
Because it's not replacing the lawyer, it's just a helping hand. It's a tool,
yeah, but
not a means to an end.
People hear little bits and then they just start extrapolating. So are there some other real examples of clauses that AI commonly gets wrong? What are the kind of things that it tends to slip up on?
I wouldn't say there's a certain clause or frequent flyers in contracts. I think it's just generally the wording that it misses. There's very specific wording that lawyers use, but it's been put there for a reason, and AI models might not know the certain order of the words.
Yeah.
Or just some choices of words even. I think that's more of a thing we tend to notice as opposed to a certain clause that gets wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I think the key takeaway here is just, get some professional advice, because it's important to get this stuff right. And this is where Tia and the team in the corporate services team at Franklin's are there to guide you through the process. And I think, people try and save money, but sometimes things that cost less aren't necessarily better value. And it's about looking at the wisest way to spend your money and make sure that you're not leaving your business open to huge risks.
Yes, you want to keep yourself protected, your team, your business. You want to make sure everything is secure. I think the top takeaway is use it as a tool, not as a means to an end. But feel free to ask us questions. We do see there's a lot more than you think. And because we've seen it, because we're exposed to it, we can help.
And also maybe admit when you've used ChatGPT,
Yes,
if you're
please.
talking to a solicitor, because they will spot it a mile off.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. And of course, if you'd like to discuss any of these issues, or if you've got something that you need help with, then get in touch with the corporate services team at Franklin Solicitors. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.